Alright, so I'm actually getting started here. I'm doing some scouting from right here on my couch, and you can see what I have is I've got Google Earth set up on my phone. You can do this on your computer too. Now I have access to everything right here within this little line right here, and everything right around here on this side of the railroad tracks. And now what I have, let me zoom in a little bit, is I've got 3 different landowners I'm actually trapping on. Chickens are getting destroyed everywhere in this area, and so my main goal, of course, is to catch chicken killers. Foxes have been a big problem. Coons are being a big problem. Those are the 2 main things I'm after. Skunks and possums I'm going to clean up if I can. Foxes are the main target critter here, and I'll catch a lot of coons doing so. So what I'm looking for here is, several things. My critters all have the same basic needs. They need food, they need water, and shelter is a loose term because a lot of times they're just going to, den up under, next to a log or somewhere convenient where they feel hid. But what I have, and looking here, as I'm trying to figure out, 1, where they're going, and 2, how they're getting there. These woods right here are going to be a major bedding area. They're going to be staying in these woods right here. Okay? But their meals are coming from more like grown-up fields where there's lots of mice, lots of rabbits. So I'm looking for mice and rabbits. And our fields are going to be that way. This field right here, I happen to have the luxury of knowing that it's fairly grown up, which means there's lots of mice. And so now all I've got to do is figure out my travel patterns to and from. Also, this field right here is fairly grown up. And I'm fairly lucky here because I have a power line path right here, which is a major travel way. So as far as these fields, and another thing that I forgot to point out is right here, there's a quarry. And this quarry right here has a huge ledge. It's hard to see. Unless I do that number, and you can see the huge ledge there, and I know that my critters are not going to be going down around that quarry. So I'm looking for travel ways, and the other thing that I forgot to point out, and it's really, really hard to see, but right here is a teeny tiny little pond, very small. So that's another water source. And if you look here, I've got this travel way along the edge of this quarry, and it's going to make a funnel right here between this pond. I know that's going to be a good travel way. I know that these power lines are going to be a good travel way, so I'm going to be looking right here in the corner for intersections and travel ways where they're cutting across right here through these woods to the power lines, which they'll use as a travel way down into this field. And from this field, once they get down here, there's it's hard to see, but there's a little ditch that runs right up to this pond. They're going to travel that ditch, and also they're going to travel this little fence row right here. They'll travel this fence row to get up through to this wood line. From this side, they'll come down the railroad tracks, and what they'll do is they're going to come down one side of the tracks or the other, most likely, and they're just going to hop right along this field edge to get to this pond for water and to hunt for mice and such. So I'm going to be looking for intersections and travel ways. I will find some most likely right here at the corner of this field. I'll find some right here at this corner right here. I'll find some here. I'll find some right here where the power lines come down in the field. I'll find something at this field corner right here where they're traveling back and forth. I'll find something along this quarry right here. Um, this part over here is a little bit harder on the railroad tracks because it's not very open. The travel ways will be harder to see. And so what I do is I use Google Earth to actually see the topography, the valleys and the crests and so on. And these railroad tracks are flat. And so what I actually look for is places where the terrain levels off with these railroad tracks where the travel is really easy. And I see spots like that right here. I see a spot like that right here. Where everything's right here is a good one. Where everything's leveling off. And then there's going to be more on over here most likely. Because these railroad tracks have a lot of valleys and ridges and such that are hard to see. But you can see this is a valley right here, and it ends up leveling off somewhere right about here. And so that's a place where it also just so happens to intersect with the corner of this field. So I know that that'll be a good location. So, I try to picture where they're going and how they're getting there, and I really focus more on travel ways than I do the actual food and water locations themselves. I will have it set down here by this pond somewhere. So that kind of gives me an idea of where I'm going to set my traps and where I can start looking for sign. Before I even get there, I have a pretty darn good idea where I'm going to be setting traps. So let's go ahead and we'll get started. Morning. This is my first day running traps here. I'm setting up on the same field that I started in. Let's see if I can wipe some of this rain off of here. I'm setting up here, and I'm setting up a little different this year than I had because I've got run of a whole bunch of land that I showed you already. I started here at the pond, and what I'm looking for, obviously I'm thinking like a critter does. They have the same basic needs that we do, food and water. I've got water right here at the pond, and this whole field is covered with mice. But so once I know where they're hunting for their food and their water, I'm looking for travel ways. And I found that your canines especially use two spots that conceal their movement. They like to use low spots, and they like to use edges, field edges. And right here we happen to have a low spot, and I've got a low spot on the other side of the pond that I have set. And so from there, I'm looking for fence crossings. I have a couple of blind sets on fence crossings right here, and I have a dirt hole down here. So far it doesn't look like I have anything in any of those. Oh damn. Looks like I missed something there. My first night. We got a blind set right here. And I have another blind set right there, which haven't been touched. And then up here on top of the hill, I actually found a mole run that had been dug up. And it had some poop right next to it. Hey, buddy. So I'll take care of this fella. He ain't that big. I'll take care of him and we'll get it remade. Here's my other catch. It's hard to see right here. It's a skunk. I'm talking quiet because I didn't bring my rifle today. It's a pretty one, a big one. What I'm going to do is sneak up behind this fella and try to shoot him through the lungs. So I'm going to play it real quiet. Try to sneak up on this guy. So he's still spooked right now, but he never sprayed. And so I got up there, I put 2 behind his shoulder, and now I'm just gonna wait for him to expire. He'll do it naturally, just like a deer when you shoot them behind their shoulder. But you can. So I'm ready to harvest the essence from this skunk. I go to a lot of trouble to keep the smell off of me. You know, I wear vinyl gloves. I actually keep a box of these. You can buy them at like Walmart or whatever. Keep them handy. Keep them with me everywhere, so that when I have to handle one of these guys, I hopefully don't end up smelling like I just got sprayed by a skunk. So here we go, let's get after it. Where I start, these glands are right next to the anus, and if you take and just kind of push in, you can see little nipples. Right here's one of them. See if you can see that. This little nipple pokes out. That's where the gland comes out of the anus. So I'm just going to poke my needle right in there. You'll feel it kind of pop and break through and just draw it right out. What I do, oh yeah, boy, this baby's full. And I always do this before I skin my skunks, because I don't want them I don't want to have to worry about cutting them glands while I'm doing this. Then I just squirt it right in a jar here. I have a jar sitting here for this. And so I have one full jar sitting here now. That filled my jar up the rest of the way. That's ready to ship off to Mr. Dunlap. Nice beautiful 4-ounce jar full. All the way full. I will wax the cap on that first before I do that. And then, you know, on the other side it's the same process. I'm going to try to zoom in just a little bit more and see if we can't see that nipple a little bit better. You can see how this side sunk in now where I drew that out. But I just kind of push in. I'm just looking for that nipple to stick out. It's hard to see, but that's it right there. It's a little meaty looking thing. Boom. You'll feel kind of like a pop. Oh yeah, gosh. This skunk was plumb full. My goodness. Zoom out so you can see that, but both sides I got a full syringe full, which is amazing. I'm going to get real close to a full ounce out of this skunk. And so that's how I do that. I'll go back on each side and do it again and try to suck just a little bit more out if I can. But that's the process for getting the essence out of these skunks. These things are more valuable than a coon right now, the way the market is. Mr. Dunlap offers a very fair price on your skunk essence, and I sell to him. You can find a lot of lure makers that are willing to buy your essence from him. But I do recommend talking to Jeff. You just look him up on Facebook, Jeff Dunlap. He's a good guy to work with. So that's it. Alright, so I'm right down here. I'm at the edge of these woods. You know, like I said, I know that the pond is right over here on the other side of this hump. And I know that they're going there. They're hunting this field for mice. So I'm looking for travel ways to and from. I know low spots and field edges are where they're traveling. And, you know, right here I have a little crossing. A decent little crossing. So I'm actually going to set it up with a cable restraint, which in Missouri is what I have to use. actually just wrapping my support right around my stake. So my trail's right here. So I'm kind of planning on my support wire. I need her to be a little higher. There we go. So I'm just kind of bending this grass here around it a little bit. Just kind of making sure that they come through where I want them to. And that's it. So that set's done. It's hard to see, but it's right there hanging in that trail. That'll fool a fox for sure. I've already punched it in. I'm not going to show you every single set that I make, but I also have a dirt hole set right there because this is a good location. I'll go in a little more depth on some of my set making here, and I'll show you on some of my remakes some of the finer details here. So I'm actually setting up in a location here. These are railroad tracks right in front of me, old ones, and it's one of those things. They have really high banks in places. I know they travel these railroad tracks, but ultimately, I'm still trying to picture where they're trying to go and how they're getting there, right? And I know this field is a major destination for them because of the pond and because of the mice populations. So when I sit here and look, they're not running across that open field just wherever. They're doing it in places where they can be concealed. I have this low spot down here where I have fence crossings set. But I've also got this little tree line right here, which in itself is a good location just because they're able to travel that concealed. And there's a major crossing there, a major one there, and a major one right over there. Okay? And then at the same time, I have a spot where the train all kind of levels out here at these train tracks. No high banks, they're using it to cross back and forth here as well. So this is a fantastic location. Now, I already have a baited set over here. It was a dug up mole run that has some scat next to it. So I just use that mole run, but I'm also going to hang cable restraints in all three of these. Now in Missouri, I can't set fence crossings. No entanglement is allowed here. So I'm going to come back 6 feet from the fence crossing, so I'm legal, and hang cable restraints just exactly the same way that I did on the one I showed you just a little bit ago. So I'll show you the finished product on that whenever I get done with it so you can see it. I'm going to do it exactly the same way as the last one. So here's the first one. We've got the grass pulled over the top. That looks just a touch on the big side, but I'm not going to sweat it any. About 7 inches off the ground. And then over here, it's a very similar story. Brush pulled over the top, right in their trail. We'll see what happens with that. this guy had actually already sprayed. I could smell him plumb across the field when I was coming across, so I know either this trap spooked him or something got after him while he's in the trap. Was a real possibility. I thought he was actually dead when I came up because he wasn't moving, but he was alive. He was just laying there sleeping in the sun, just comfortable. So we'll wait for that guy to expire there, but I could have shot him from over here and he wouldn't have even knew what happened. So I'll get this thing remade up. Alright, so here we are. I got my skunk out of the trap. Now, the natural factor of this is going out the window because this is a remake. And this guy drug everything within this catch circle right up in the middle here. First thing I gotta do is, first and foremost, make sure that my swivels are gonna work, you know. So I'm just kind of trying to locate my bed right now, my trap bed, because I'm going to keep it in the same bed. There's my original hole way up there. It's all this skunky stuff right here. Phew, hey, we'll go ahead and use it. Now, I'm really not worried about scent here, but I am worried about my wife jumping my ass when I get home. So I'm putting down an old t-shirt here as a kneeling cloth, just to keep some of this smell off of me. So I've got gloves on. It doesn't matter. I can reset this without gloves and it wouldn't hurt a freaking thing. Right? Get my antifreeze. And so here we go. Let's dig my bed back out. You know, you're only going to hear me preach about 3 things on any set. Location being the first. And that's why you're going to hear me in this video preach more about location than anything else, because that is the single most important factor. Bedding, number 2. And then bait and lure is the least important, but it is still somewhat important. You know, you want to have something that your critter is going to commit to and be willing to work, dance around and so on to get caught, right? And then the last thing, number 4, I'll say is keep your trap working, right? Now this whole area smells like a skunk. A lot of guys will say, I'm going to take this trap and reset it outside the catch circle. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, okay? This trap and everything right here in this area all smells like skunk. They will never pick your trap out unless it's not bedded good. That's the only way they'll pick it out. So I'm going to put all my stuff down underneath my trap, my chain and my spring and everything. 3 points of contact. The 2 levers are resting on solid ground. The back of the trap is on solid ground. And then very carefully, making sure I don't get anything underneath this pan, I will push this dirt up here to rest my loose jaw in. Now I can still screw this up. If I push this all the way down, it springs back up. And then all of a sudden my jaw is loose. So pack my stuff down and I just push it down to the point where it's solid in there, but it doesn't spring back up on me. On some of these traps, your loose jaw can spring back up on you, especially on a 4-coil trap where your loose jaw may set a little high. You know, kind of pay attention to that. On a 2-coil trap, normally they'll set pretty flat. This trap is 4-coiled. Give it a little extra speed because the springs had kind of gotten weak on it. And so I can push on this. There's a tiny little bit of movement, but not enough to concern me. Okay, so I'm going to just finish packing stuff around this. There's actually a little blood from that skunk when I shot it there. We'll get rid of that. I don't really need no meaty smell in here. Okay, so we got a solid bed here. And then I'm running low on peat moss again, but I just fill this middle part of the trap in with peat moss. This part of it I do the same way every time. Okay, so I've got enough there, and then I'll just take and kind of use some of this stuff and brush my peat moss out, right? Okay. No critter that comes along is going to know what's going on there. I am just going to take and spread a little bit of this stuff around, just for shits and giggles, to kind of blend stuff in, since it's already here. The curiosity factor is the damn skunk smell. Now, I still want to know where my critter's going to step, even though this is a remake. I still want to know that when my critter comes up to this hole to work with my bait, that he's going to step where I want him to. Oh boy, my bait's still in there. So we'll just leave that there. That's great. So when he comes up to check out what's in the hole, I want to know that they're going to step where I want them to step, and not just wherever the heck they want to go, because they're going to be smelling all over where the skunk was. They're going to be smelling all over the place. Alright. So here's my trap, right? It's right here. And here's my hole. Well, I'm going to keep them from coming in on this side of the hole right here. I'm just going to punch in a little hole, and I'll just take a little clump of grass, stick it down in that hole. That's natural. They're walking around this stuff all day. They'll never know the difference. Okay? And then, you know, I can do the same thing on this side. I may come a tad closer to the trap on this side. I don't want them to feel too blocked down. And so, let's grab another handful of this stuff. Right down in the hole she goes. Okay. And so that's that. They walk around these clumps of grass every day. They'll never think a thing about that. And so I've kind of got they can come in over here, and that's okay. They can't work my hole from over here. They can a little bit, but they're going to realize that that bait's too far down in there. And they'll square up. And so when they come through here, my trap's here, boom, game is over. They're done. So that's pretty much a done remake. I will take and still go ahead and put a little dab of red fox gland in there as well. I'm going to use some of Mr. Dunlap's red fox gland on the back of the hole there. And that's all done. That set's made and ready to catch something else. If I catch another skunk, that's great. If I catch a fox, that's great. I'll take whatever comes through here. This is why skunk remakes are so good. Oh, beautiful little guy. I'm sitting up over here on this small tract of land, kind of on the town side of these railroad tracks. And I've been walking through just a little road that runs through. You can see it's all really brushy up in here, which is awesome. That means food source. And this just kind of confirms what I was thinking. That's rabbit hair. So something caught and killed and ate a rabbit right here. You know, you can kind of see there's another set of tracks that's going around this pile. So it's an intersection, and you know, those critters aren't going to come through here any more than they have to. You know, they're going to use our man-made trails to travel about and not work any harder than they have to. They're smart. But old buildings like this are great places for red foxes. They like to den up in them. And I have a lot of old buildings in here. There's one over there. So I have a lot of old buildings that these foxes can den up in, and they will. But I'm going to focus on the roads and paths that run through here. And so I'm actually not going to put the set right here. There's a trail just, 20 yards up here that comes from that barn out. And so I'm actually going to make my set right there because I think that that's just a slightly better location. I'll show you that in a second. Alright, so here I am. I'm right by this old barn. And right here I have a trail coming through. A heavy trail. A really, really nice trail. And I look on this side of the road, and there's a little bit of one coming through here. So I know that some critters are coming through here. I am going to set a cable restraint up on that because this is just beat down hard. And the way our Missouri laws read is I cannot set a cable restraint in a manner, and this ain't exactly the way the law reads, but where it can tangle up with anything, any rooted structure over a ½ inch in diameter. So I have to find a spot up in here where there's no trees, where I can get 6 feet away from these trees. And I think I see a spot right there, so we'll set that up. And I'm also going to go ahead and punch in a dirt hole set right here, and so I'll kind of show you that when it's done. Okay, so here's my cable restraint. I found a spot in this trail right here where the grass is actually leaning right over the top of the trail. So I use that as a nice natural guiding. This is beautiful stuff right here. You can see where that trail just runs right on through, and this is actually the one spot I found where there's no ½ inch rooted structures around. So we'll see what happens with this. Okay, so I'm in another location here. I'm actually on the back side of this property, right by the railroad tracks. They're about 15 yards in front of me there. And I found a trail, actually a bunch of trails. There's one there, there's one here that's coming through, and there's only one trail on this side. Alright, and it just so happens that this trail is in a place where there's no ½ inch rooted structures right here. It's all grass and just very, very, very small brush, so I'm in good shape there. I do have something right there that is too big, and so what I'm going to do, instead of having to trim all that down, is I'm going to stake my cable restraint down on this side, which will get me exactly where I need to be legal, and that'll take care of that issue. So I'm going to put a cable restraint there, and I'm also going to make a flat set right here, because I really don't want them having to stray too far off of their trail. I want them to do, for the most part, what's natural to them. So we're going to punch in this flat set real quick like, and then we'll be on our way. Now at this point, I do for sure 100% have bait smell on my hands. I can smell it myself, which means a fox definitely can. I'm being very careful when I handle my trap to make sure I'm picking it up way down here on the chain towards the end of my anchor. And with that being all the way in the ground, I don't have to worry about them finding it and digging me up and stuff. So obviously, just like always. Now when I make a flat set, I want to be careful to make sure that I don't leave loose dirt laying around. With a flat set, there's no obvious reason for there to be dirt. And I want them to come in just walking around smelling looking for this strange and curious smell that they're after when they come through. So I'm being very careful with my loose dirt to make absolutely sure that that I'm not leaving loose dirt around to And so when I'm blending this in, of course, I'm breaking my grass up. You'd be amazed how much this helps with thievery too, when they can't see your set. The only thing they can see is a critter in your trap. Alright, so that's fairly well blended in. I like it. I'm satisfied. I think the critters will be satisfied. And so now I've got my trap bedded. And I'm just going to take my bone and just tap, 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 tap. Drive it in, and I'm driving it in with some backing. I don't want it to be crazy obvious. So there's that. Trap set and bedded. Take my gloves off and we'll do some bait. So that I don't get any bait smell on my gloves. Because if you leave your gloves on when you bait, the smell's on your gloves, and then it's from your gloves to your trap, right? So get rid of that. And what I'm going to put here is a little bit of beaver tail oil, which is a great bait. And see if I can find my bobcat rub. I'm going to put some beaver castor. A little bit of beaver castor down here. I tell you what. Oh yeah, baby. Beaver castor is a fantastic lure. I'm just going to kind of smear it on right here. Do that stick there. Need to add a little glycerin to this beaver castor. It seems like it's just a touch on the dry side. And so that's that. That's all done. Crazy amount of curiosity here and food smell with the castor and with the beaver tail oil, and that's a great location. So I'll keep you updated there. Here's my last location here. Right here at the back corner, I've got an old pond. Still holds water. It just so happens to be right next to the railroad track and right next to this old abandoned barn. This is kind of a hot spot right here. There's a trail that's coming through right here, and as I walk through here, if you've never smelled a fox, they smell sort of skunky. Not really. It doesn't have the sweet part of the skunk smell, but it's a distinct sort of skunky smell. And I've walked through here 2 or 3 times, and every time right here, I can't pinpoint where it's coming from, but I smell that skunky smell, which tells me that they're either peeing here or they're spending a lot of time here, something where I can smell them foxes. I can smell them here. Makes it a hot spot. So I'm going to just punch in a normal dirt hole right here. I'm really surprised to see this guy in a cable restraint. Big coon. I mean, just crazy big. God, this guy's heavy. I'm going to go ahead and take care of him and get him out of here. Here's 2 of my other sets, all non-targets, and there's the other one up there. Another great big old coon. Big coon. I'll take care of these guys and make some remakes. What a pleasant surprise. Folks, this is my first gray fox. We don't have a lot of these guys here in central Missouri. He's a decent one too. Beautiful little critter right here. Caught this guy on my beaver bait and Dunlap's red gland. Very cool. I'm going to take care of this guy and remake it. Got a vicious little feral cat here. You can see he's not hurt one little bit. Not at all. See, there's no blood, no damage. This guy wants the feral cats. I'm going to... I don't have my tripod with me today. So I'm going to see if we can pull this off. Okay. This guy. Let's see if I can find his foot. Right here it is. He can feel me, he can hear me talking, but he can't see me. And I could leave this coat here forever, and he would stay here forever. But, trap's loose. His foot's not damaged. Let's go and let him go. There we go. Done deal. Alright, so I'm down here on this field corner, right here, where they're going into this funnel between the pond. I have the trail right here, and the wind is blowing towards these cedars, towards the trail where I'm standing. I'm only 5 feet away. You know, I don't rely on my baits and lures to pull them a crazy distance, because I know they're not going to come that distance. Now up here, there's just all kinds of critters coming through here. So I'm going to set this to be not quite so specific. I want this to be kind of a catch-all, if you will. You know, I want, if a coyote comes through, I want to catch it. If a fox comes through, I want to catch it. If a bobcat, so on and so forth. You know where I'm going with that. And so what that means is I'm going to rely a little more heavily on my natural guiding, this thick grass right here. I'm going to rely a little more on that, and I'm going to be sitting further back from my hole. So my hole's going to be up in here. My trap's going to be back here about a foot away.
sitting up here. I'm 20 yards from the power lines. I'm at the corner of this field, right here, the very front corner where I come in. There's a hardcore trail right here. And if I watch where that trail comes through, it's going underneath trees and limbs. I know for sure that's not deer doing that, because deer ain't going to go underneath all that trash to get through. Right over here at the start of the power lines, there's an old pond, kind of. And I say kind of because it's pretty dry. But critters are coming through here on the way to the power lines, which is a travel route, to the pond where there's water. Just a hardcore, beautiful travel area. I think you're kind of getting an idea now of the kind of locations I'm looking for. You know, I'm looking for travel ways. And for the most part, you can generally tell by looking at the terrain where those travel ways are going to be, with just some general common sense. So, field corners, edges of fenced rows, edges of intersections of fields and power lines, you know, those are the kind of places where I look for sign and stuff like this. So, basically places where travel is easy for the critter coming and going to their food sources and their water sources and such. So I'm not going to show any more because I think I've given you enough of that. And what I'm going to do here is set up a cable restraint right here in this trail. And I'm also going to put a dirt hole somewhere, probably just right here on this side, at this, right here at this little intersection, out of the way where I won't run over it with my truck. So we'll keep you going there. I set this trap here 2 days ago, actually, and I was actually scouting deer sign. There's a pond bank right up here, which makes this a natural funnel. And I was scouting deer, and I was looking on this deer trail coming down, and I looked, and I'll be darned if there wasn't coyote tracks there. And I said, yeah. So I already knew I was in a good spot, so I'm kind of scouting. I've got this road that runs up through here towards the river. You know, this is the road that runs along here. And I've got this ditch that runs along here. And so I was up here at this, you know, in this area, just kind of looking around. I'm actually not seeing it right now. There was some bobcat scat right here in the middle of the road. I may have run over it yesterday when I turned around here. But there's bobcat scat right here in the middle of the road, and so I thought, I need to make this a catch-all set right here. So I did. I made a dirt hole, somewhat blocked in, and I just used some skunk grease and some bobcat urine and a little bit of rabbit fur down in the dirt hole, rabbit fur and beaver tail oil down in the hole. And here we are 2 days later with this beautiful coyote. It's just absolutely beautiful. And this, for all you big pan haters, was caught in a big pan trap. This is one of my Victor number 2s. Nice pad catch. So let me get this guy out of here, and we'll show the remake here. Alright, so my coyote's dead. I caught him just above the pad, between his pad and his toes. In my opinion, that's a good catch. So that's a solid, probably 35-pound coyote. That's a good one. Okay. So tons and tons of coyote smell here. I mean, just crazy amount of smell, which is good. Get my gloves on here real quick. get all this grass out of my trap bed here. I tell you what, man, this thing must have been working like the dickens, because I'm actually going to have to turn this into a step down dirt hole or something. There ain't no trap bed left. The whole freaking area here is dug out where I had my bait and everything. I'm gonna have to be a little creative here, I suppose. Okay. Make a little area. Right here for my trap to set on to start out with. What I'm using here is just a little ice melt for antifreeze. I'm fixing to get a lot of rain, so I'm going to be pretty liberal with that. I'm going to use a lot of it. Okay, let me make sure we can see what I'm doing here. I'm actually going to move this just a touch. Okay. Now, I'm going to get these rocks out of here. I'm actually going to move a couple of them just to use as like some guiding. I'm just going to go ahead and push this sucker right down in here. Tell you what, as trappers, we constantly have to be innovative and come up with like new ideas and stuff and just kind of respond to our situation, whatever it happens to be. You know, in this instance, I don't have a trap bed to work with anymore. Coyotes are starting to rut right now. Most of the guys in my state are pulling their traps up because of the rain coming up. But I'm going to hope and pray that maybe, just maybe, another one will come through before it starts pouring down. A lot of rock in this area. Okay. Just a little dry dirt in here to kind of fill things in. Not really as solid as I want it to be, but since I don't really have any solid ground to work with right now. I'm just going to make do with that. It's not ideal, but I suppose it'll work. And so now, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to pile some rocks up right here. These rocks are already in the area. They smell like a coyote. And I'll dig out a new dirt hole. This is extremely rocky right here where I'm at. Sprinkle just a little more of this. Before I start covering. Actually, before I go too crazy with that, I'm also going to sprinkle a bunch of that on. And now, what I'll do is just take a bunch of dirt, if I can get it from my kit circle right here. Okay. Okay. Give me my bait. Take off my gloves so I don't get no smell in my gloves. All I did last time was cuff the rabbit hair down in the hole. A little shot of beaver tail oil and tiny, and I say tiny, drop of skunk grease. This is just a skunky smear bait that I make myself. If you want to know how I make it, there's a video on my channel. don't want to make it, Dunlap's Lures makes a very skunky call lure called Hellfire, and that'll work real nice for you. So there's my finished set. Let me step back so you can get a better look at that. My trap's kind of a nice little step down pad right between the hole and the normal ground. So I'll give them a spot to step on their way to investigate, and the rest of this stuff from the catch circle, I just like to kind of pile up right there. I don't want to go crazy blocking them in, but that is all natural. And so that's a done set. Boy, this is an old fox. He's got a crazy eye too. This right here next to this trail is where I'm at. Alright, so I've got Mr. Red Fox out of my trap. For anybody that wonders, I just use a 22 to dispatch them. I'm showing this because I had this set dug up just yesterday, and I see people ask all the time, I just got dug up, what do I need to do? And the answer is the same thing I'm always going to tell you. Bed it solid where they can't feel it, and that's it. This trap was dug up yesterday. I've got a fox in it today. This is the second time this season that I have had this exact same instance happen. Where I was dug up the day before and I had a fox in it the next day. I'm going to gather up a bunch of this stuff just so that it's out of the way. And we're going to remake this set, and I'm going to show you what I mean. I'll tell you what, for me, my season's been open for a few weeks now. I've caught a few foxes, which isn't what I was looking for as good of a location as I'm in. And I had probably 7 or 8 dig ups, which is pitiful. I started out using peat moss, and what I come to find out was that they were actually feeling the peat moss when they stepped in. I've not had the problem before, but I had a lot of that trouble this year. A lot of it. Sometimes I demonstrate what I've went to that is working really, really well for me. Now this was a step down dirt hole. This fox area smells very, very, very skunky, which is just the way a fox smells. They have that I won't need any lure off here. So I preach location, which this location is excellent. Bedding, bait, lure, and function are the 4 things that you have to have. And when I say function, I simply mean that when a critter steps on your pan, that it's going to go off, that there's nothing to keep your trap from going off. And there's really only two things that cause your trap to keep your trap from going off. It's either frozen ground or it's stuff under your pan. It's one or the other. So let me go ahead and reset this. I'm using the exact same trap, blood and everything, because there's a ton of smell in this area. I mean, a crazy amount of smell. They have no freaking clue that this trap is here. My trap ain't quite sitting low enough for that loose jaw to rest against the back, so I'm just digging more out because my levers are what's keeping it from resting against the back here. I want this solid jaw resting on the back. Okay, so that is good. That's nice and solid. I just kind of stick my fingers in front of the pan right here and just roll some dirt forward to keep it from going underneath that pan. And just push that jaw right down into it. So now that jaw is solid. We're going to pack some stuff on the outside here. Okay. Okay, very, very good. Now this is solid. It didn't matter where Mr. Fox steps. I could push anywhere on these jaws. There's just a tiny bit of movement right there. I don't think it's enough that he'll even notice it because they don't step as hard as I'm pushing. Okay, now most people think, okay, this thing is bedded solid. This trap ain't moving, right? And they think that's good enough. They can just throw some stuff inside the jaws, cover up the rest of it, and we're good to go. And I'm going to show you what happens here when you do exactly that. I'm going to put down just a little more antifreeze before I do this, because again, function, I want my trap to work. If it freezes up, it doesn't work. And I'm just going to use loose dirt from around this catch circle here, since I don't quite have enough. Okay, this trap is covered. I'm going to expose the pan just so I don't catch myself. Now this whole thing is covered. It looks really good, right? Now this pan represents roughly a third of this whole area. So no matter what you do with this particular trap, you have about a 30% chance of catching something. If your pan is smaller, your chances go down to roughly 20% this way. So here comes Mr. Fox. He smells everything. He wants the bait that's down in my hole. He steps in. Boom. His foot sinks all the way through. Sinks all the way through. He steps somewhere other than my pan. and his foot sinks all the way through. Well, guess what just happened? We just got dug up, okay? If he steps somewhere where it's loose and he's somewhere other than the pan, you're getting dug up. That's just the way it is. So make sure that whatever you're using, and I'm not going to tell you what to use. I strongly discourage you from using peat moss because it has caused me a lot of trouble. Make sure that wherever that critter steps, that there ain't nothing loose for him to get in. See, I'm packing this stuff right here too, just to make sure that when my critter comes in here and steps inside, that there ain't nothing for him to feel. Excellent. I'm going to just do one more quick sprinkle of antifreeze and then cover this up the rest of the way, and we'll be good. It's just ice melt. So bedding is not just how solid your trap is. It also encompasses how solid your dirt is. You know, we want this dirt as solid as everything around. And so that when this fox steps on your trap, he has no idea. And the same thing applies for coyotes, coons, everything. These same rules apply. Everybody always asks, well, what about the blood? I don't really care about the blood. These critters aren't that smart. They don't know what that blood's caused by, as far as they know. You know, they... Alright. My trap is remade. Get rid of my gloves. Now, I've got plenty of smell here already. I don't need any more gland lure, and I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to waste that money. But a little bit of bait don't hurt nothing. So I've got a couple of small mice that I'm going to stick down in there and give my next victim something to work for. And the last final touch is all this loose stuff that Mr. Fox here dug up. I'm going to spread to the sides a little, just to where Mr. Fox finds the area where my trap is a little more inviting than the rest. Because I do want it kind of going over my pan. That is good. We'll catch more.